When we go all in as a church, we embrace the will of God for our lives.
Yes.
And when I was thinking about how we could close this series that we've entitled All In, what the Lord had spoke to me was truly, instead of going all in, what it really looks like to go all in is it looks like all Him. It looks like all Jesus. It will never stop being Jesus. It will never stop being the grace of God. And my heart cries out to you today to tell you that He loves you. He loves you so much. Flip to John chapter 5 as quickly as you can or write it down. In this story, we see that Jesus is in Jerusalem and He comes to this place that's called Bethesda. Can you all say Bethesda? So He comes to Bethesda, and what He sees is He sees 5 roofed colonnades, all with blind, lame, sick, people who are lying invalid. And what He does is He comes and He draws near to this particular man. And the scriptures say that this man had been lying there for 38 years. That's a long time. 38 years. So Jesus draws near to this man that's laying on the mat. And what He says seems really weird to our earthly minds, but he looks down at the man on the mat and He opens His mouth, and what He says is, "Would you like to be healed?" He says, "Would you like to be healed?" And what the man says back at Jesus is not yes and not no, but what he says is he pleads his testimony. Have you ever pled your testimony to the Lord? He says, "Every single time that I tried to get to this pool, somebody take. Every single time that I crawl to the pool, my fingertips touch the very tip of the water, somebody takes my spot." And without saying another word, after Jesus hearing this testimony, He says to the man lying on the ground, "Take up your mat and walk." And he does just that. He takes up his mat, he walks right past Jesus. But you see, the story doesn't end there. Because we see that during the time the Jews got word of this, they knew that this man had been healed, and on this particular day, it was the Sabbath. And for a lot of us, today is the Sabbath.
Right.
The Sabbath is the day of rest, the day of renewal, a day of restoration.
Yes.
And what happened was the Jews came and they decided to confront Jesus. They saw Him as a corruption to the church. And when they confronted Jesus, Jesus spoke once more, and what He said was something that I believe that reveals the entire nature of Jesus, but at the same time, the will of God. And you may be sitting in your seat right now wondering, what is the will of God for my life? How do I know the will of the Father? And what Jesus says, "My Father is working until now, therefore I am working." And what does that mean? That means that the very nature of Jesus is always dependent upon the Father's instruction. It's always dependent upon the Father's will. To me, I think about this. And when Jesus says that my Father is working until now, I realize that God's will is tied to a tense of time. God's will is always tied to a tense of time. And that time is the present. God is always present. So if you're wondering when the will of God will align with your life, the time is now. The time is now. And what I see is that when we live in a tense of time, and that God's tense of time is now, that how do we get in alignment with God's will? It's not a tense of time only, but it's the nature of Jesus. So when we embrace the nature of Jesus, we embrace the will of God. Jesus is always dependent upon what God says. So that's how we fall under the mercy and the will of God. I ask that you embrace the nature of Jesus. So when you embrace His nature, you will receive and you will be in alignment with the will of God. God bless you.